Don't make some conspiracy. Guys just screwed up.
Super Bowl now less than a week away. The Rams are there for the first time in 17 years. The Patriots are there for the first time since this same time last year. Longtime Pats defensive stalwart Patrick Chung took to the mic, waxed poetic about what he thought this game was going to turn into.
We love you. We love you, man. Hey, I appreciate the support. We're going to go out here and kick their ass, baby. Hey. Let me get a beat LA on 3. Ready? 1, 2. Hold on. All right. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, baby.
God, it brings back memories of how many times I've clipped the beginning parts of all the good things in my life that I tried to record. At least he did it the right way. Cece, how evenly matched are these teams?
That's funny.
Well, I don't think it's as even. Like on the field, from a talent standpoint, it's even. But then you bring in the coaching and the experience. That, to me, makes a decisive advantage for New England. So regardless of what you think, regardless of this game, the Super Bowl is different than any other game. And no team, no organization has the experience that New England. So for me, they're not even. There's no way they can be even. Looking at the quarterbacks in Tom Brady, understanding the situation, understanding what media day is going to be like, understanding the family requirements, all those things. So for me, on paper, these teams, yeah, you could match them up. Say offense, defense, special teams. Man, the special teams of the Rams, man, they really take a lot of chances. And you can say, man, do they have the advantage on the special teams against New England? That'd be one of the rare times we ever said that. But when you got some of the intangibles, coaching, experience, huge advantage from my perspective with New England going into this game.
Pats were pretty evenly matched, I think most people believed, with the Chargers. Chargers had more talent, pretty evenly matched overall, though, and they whooped them. The Pats were at a deficit against Kansas City as far as the matchups, and they were on the road. And they won that game in overtime. So, like, do I think that I could do the same thing I did with the Chargers, which is look at the top 8 players in this game, how many are on the Rams? Yeah. Do I think that will be the deciding factor? Not anymore. Not when you've seen the 2 biggest games the Pats have played all year were their 2 best games they played all year, and not that we now also have the context of, is this a team that, for some reason this year, has played its best against its best competition? 6-0 now against teams that made the playoffs. Beat the Chiefs twice. Beat the Bears. Like, they had some bad losses against bad teams. The Titans and the Dolphins were a mediocre team. The Lions. But against good teams, the Pats played pretty damn well all year long, and the schematic edge that I would imagine they are going to come into the game with to go along with the drastic experience edge of the quarterbacks, to me, that can more than overcome potentially what I think is the talent deficit. And we know the Patriots are going to be deeper than the Rams because the Rams are one of the least deep teams in the league. When you spend the type of money they do on frontline players, once you're past your starting 22, you're not going to have the depth other teams.
That's why it's really hard to do. If you do a tail of the tape and you try to do, it's very, very effective in basketball. You try to do the top 8 players, the top 6 players, the top 10 players on this team. In basketball, it's easy to do because the effect, offensively, defensively, they can dominate the game if you're dominating the top players. In football, you can't do that. We have a saying in the NFL. The team is only as good as the worst football player. So on a 53-man roster, it don't matter who got the best 10 players because you need 53 to be able to do it. And the bottom of the roster becomes very, very important. So when you look at New England, they will never look good on the tail of the tape. That's why against the Chargers, they didn't look good. They didn't look decisive. That's why they look bad on the road. But now you put them in a bye week situation and you talk about top to bottom of that roster, 1 to 53, the New England Patriots and their experience, they have a decisive advantage on other teams.
But isn't this also why we place so much weight on being good at situational football? That even if you're at a talent deficit, because you understand the situation, you understand your players, you know what they're good at, what they're not good at, you understand, you know, how to be so tight on both sides of the ball. That's what makes this team so good and so dominating.
Well, and that's right. They are so rarely, the reason that we will bring up that Miami play at the end of the game for the rest of the year and into next year is because it was an outlier. Like, that was the rare game. Wait, the Patriots had that game won, and they lost, that never happens to them. And so almost every other team in the league, it happens once or twice a season where it's like, man, how did we lose that game? And so, absolutely right, Jenna. We know that the Patriots are not going to butcher the clock at the end of the half. We know that Belichick's not going to find himself, oh my God, it's midway through the third quarter and I'm out of challenges. Like those types of things that other teams shoot themselves in the foot on, the Pats never do.
And one thing, we got a little insight from Patrick Chung there. I've talked to Patrick Chung before, and one of the things he expressed to me was, he gets disappointed in the national media not giving New England and players like him credit for being very, very talented. So he sounded just as normal. Man, we're going to go out there and kick day A. They got a bunch of guys in the locker room. We try to make them out like they're robots. They're not. They got a bunch of guys like Patrick Chung, week in and week out, saying, man, listen, I got a great game plan, but I'm a very, very good football player. We don't acknowledge them enough.
All right, sticking with the Super Bowl, the Rams are hoping to have Todd Gurley at full strength, something he seemingly wasn't during the NFC Championship game. Gurley says his knee is fine, and Patriots linebacker Dante Hightower says he's expecting a lot of Gurley in the Super Bowl game plan. All right, CC, what should the Patriots expect to see from Todd Gurley?
Right, I would expect to see a lot of Todd Gurley. There's one thing in just reading through information, I was very shocked at Bill Belichick. He met Sean McVay last year at the scouting combine, and they exchanged phone numbers. And randomly during the season, after games, Bill Belichick will text Sean McVay. So I was watching the game and everything. Man, great game planning. You guys are explosive. You guys are dangerous. Specifically after the Minnesota game. I think Todd Gurley had 150 yards total offense in that game, 80 rushing, over 70 receiving. He texted him after that game. So I'm pretty certain that Bill Belichick, if he saw that game with Todd Gurley had 150 and he had that balance, that's already in his memory, because he contacted him after the game. So for me, I believe that they'll be expecting the Todd Gurley that we saw earlier in the season. And I believe that he is the one guy, just like last week. Who was it, Nick?
Tyreek Hill.
It's Todd Gurley this week. So it's harder for Bill Belichick to take a running back away than he can a wide receiver. Yeah. So also in trying to take a running back away, it should set up other things for other people on the field. So Todd Gurley, we should see one of the best versions of Todd Gurley that we've seen in the last 2 months. And I believe the New England Patriots, that is their #1 game plan, is to eliminate Todd Gurley from being dominant.
Going into this year, what was the part of Todd Gurley's game that I thought differentiated him from Ezekiel Elliott? When I would say Gurley's the best back in football, what was the part of his game?
Receiving out of the backfield.
Absolutely right. And this year, it was a layup. Just like your Tyreek Hill to me. I tried to play it back to you. This year,
neither of you should play it with me.
Okay, I apologize, Jenna. I didn't know what you were going to say. His hairstyle, and so it's on the board. Right. But so this year, he has not been the dominant receiver he was last year. Only one game all year with more than 6 catches. That was the last game he played in the regular season against the Eagles. Only 3 games this year with more than 40 yards receiving. That was surprising to me. I didn't realize that until I was looking over it today, because basically his average game, it was 3 catches, 35 yards. 4 catches, 28 yards. 5 catch, 51-yard game was a big game receiving for him. I think that has to be an enormous part of what they do. Now, it's hard. In this first Super Bowl, the Pats won. Marshall Faulk was the greatest, I believe, receiving running back ever, and they found a way to take him out of their offense and turn the greatest show on turf into a team that couldn't hit 20 points. So if they could do it to Marshall Faulk 20 years ago, I'm sure they will find a way to at least try to do it to Todd Gurley. But I don't think the Rams have a clear path to victory that doesn't involve, apologies for the double negative, a huge game from Todd Gurley. I think Gurley, the Chiefs showed you take Tyreek Hill away, we can find a way through Mahomes and other guys to score points. I think the Rams will struggle if Gurley can't be involved running and receiving.
But the Rams struggled for a second when Gurley was not involved in the NFC Championship game, and they just threw C.J. Anderson out there, and they found a way to run him and let him power through. Do you think you see the same thing if, for whatever reason, you don't get a lot early out of Todd Gurley?
No, I believe C.J. Anderson can be effective in moving moving the chains, but he doesn't have the explosiveness that would threaten New England. New England, their linebackers are not very, very fast. What they would be fearful of is Todd Gurley coming out of the backfield. So they need both their running backs to be effective, especially since Cooper Kupp, their wide receiver, is out. But C.J. Anderson only presents a certain, and that's a limited number of problems. New England, against that type of running back, typically they do well.
And New England is fine with 12-play drives. They want to see if you can do it. What can hurt New England, it's the reason the Chiefs put up 30 in the second half on them twice this year, is if you can get them big plays. And so C.J. Anderson is not a big play threat to what you're talking about. Todd Gurley absolutely is. Like, if you're going to try to score with New England, you better do it with major chunk plays. That means Gurley and Cooks both need to have big games.
All right, take a break. Coming up, breaking news out of the